Hey, hello and welcome to this really fun tutorial by Flomotion, because today I'm going to show you how to use stock elements. Just follow me. Into After Effects. So before we even start, let me quickly tell you what stock elements actually are. So normally in film you speak of stock footage, which is footage that you have shot previously and that you can reuse for different films or shots. So in this case here we use visual effects stock elements, so VFX stock elements. That means we have different categories like explosions, fire, dust, debris, you name it. And you can have all of this as assets for your visual effects shots to enhance them or to simply make them possible. And as I saw in the comments of this teaser, you really want to have some free stuff to try out, and I reached out to all those companies, and I will tell you more about that in the end of that tutorial. Really? Clickbait? No, you don't have to watch until the end. Honestly, I totally understand you, and I would have loved to have free clips when I started doing all of that. So for my shot I've used elements from big films as well as Video Copilot. And I talked to both of them. So for big films you can simply go to bigfilms.shop. So this is the package that I have used, the Blockbuster Starter Pack, which is at the moment available for only $98. They have like a lot of blasts, destruction, and actually this is the element that we are using today, lasers. But I also talked to Steven from Big Films, and he told me, and I quote him here, that they will provide you with free mini packs to use and to download from their page on a monthly basis, and they will start with that by the end of summer. So they are at the moment setting that up especially for you. And if you scroll down at the bottom here, you can just leave your mail for the newsletter, and then you will be automatically informed as soon as those mini packs are available. And the other stuff I used is from Video Copilot, the Action Essentials 2. And this is a really famous bundle, so nearly each VFX company owns one of those. And I also talked to Matt from Video Copilot, and he provided me with some links where you can download free assets that are actually on the page already. And of course I will link all of that in the descriptions below. And Video Copilot was really the first company to sell or create those elements, and I've used the explosions and shots and debris and whatnot in so many shots over the last years. And let me tell you something, when I first bought it I was so overwhelmed and I just loved it so much I immediately created a music video for my old band and basically used every explosion and every blast and everything that was in the bundle for only that music video. And actually a few weeks later a TV station called because they found this clip so impressive that they invited me and my band for a small interview, and we were also able to play live within that TV show. So this is my small story to Action Essentials, and I will link all of that in the description below. If you know any other company or any other site where you can get like free test clips or like great bundles, just leave it in the comment below, and in that case we can just create a big library for visual effects stock elements. But back to this tutorial. So therefore I'm just bringing out this footage, and this is what I have filmed. Let's just play this back. It is me reacting to the laser, and I told my cameraman to also make those like shakes to make it look more convincing. And of course at the end I do the jump into the hole later on. Okay, and from there on this is super easy. You almost don't have to create anything. Let's just go into our stock elements and use that same laser again. Just bring it out here. So let's just find the point in time where I look to the sky where it should happen. And let's set marker. You can do that by clicking on that marker button, and now we can just align it. This is the point in time where the laser should hit the ground. And of course I'm going to align it over here, and again I'm just also going to crop out those black bars over here with a crop effect, crop edges, and I'm doing 10% top and bottom, not left and right. Okay, and let's directly play with the blending modes, because even though we have a transparent background for the laser, I still don't find this very convincing. So let's try different blending modes for the laser. Maybe we go for screen. And this looks really, really nice. Let's try add, which gives it just like more of a hot core of the laser. But I would stick for the screen matte here. But I think you've already seen that the footage is pretty shaky and the laser doesn't really stick to the footage. So we have to track the motion of our footage so that we can link this to the laser. So next step that we're going to do is to track our background so that we have this wiggle and rotation and this shake. And then I'm linking the laser and all the elements we're going to use later on to that tracking data. This is super, super easy. Let's just click on the footage that we want to track. And we are using Mocha AE and just drag and drop it onto the footage and simply click the Mocha button. And that opens up the Mocha window. And I want to track a part that stays in the frame all the time. So I'm just going to the X spline layer tool and just create a shape around this part. And all I have to do now is to click on track forward over here. And you can already see while looking at it, while it is tracking, that it is doing a pretty good job. Let's quickly stop it here, because we can also add a grid to it. I'll make this a little bit smaller. Let me tell you something, that grid does nothing. It's just when I'm tracking forward, I can directly see if everything sticks together. Okay, it's done, and let's play this back. And you can see that the grid is sticking pretty good. Also the scaling, so absolutely perfect, nothing to add to this. Let's just save it, file, save, and I can close it, and I'm back in After Effects. And here in After Effects, what I'm doing now is I create a null object, because I want to store the data somewhere. And I want to store it in a null object. So a null object is a layer that is not visible, but it can just hold information and you can link other layers to it. And you can do that by layer, new, null object. And now I click on the footage again, on the Mocha, and I want to create the tracking data that we have just tracked. So I click on create tracking data, and there is the layer that we have created. Just a quick proof. I cancel this, go back into Mocha, and call this camera track, save it. And back in Mocha, when I create tracking data, I have the camera track. And make sure that you have the wheel over here. That means it is selected, and hit OK. So what do we want to do with that? Which export options do we want to use? We want to use transform, because the camera is moving up and down, left and right, rotating a little bit and scaling. And this is the transform. Position, scale, rotation. And we want to export it to, well, we just said we want to export it to the null object. And all I have to do now is click apply and export. And let's check if this has worked. I click on the null object and hit U, and that shows me all the keyframes that it has created. And when I scrub through this, you can see that the null object sticks to the footage. Perfect, perfect, exactly what we wanted. So now let's go back to the one marker. And by the way, I'm zooming in and out of the timeline by holding down the Alt button, having my mouse on the timeline, and just use my mouse wheel to zoom in and out. And when I click on the mouse wheel, I get the hand and can move the timeline around. We have aligned the laser at this frame. Now click on the laser and use this pick whip and parent it to the null object. And in this way, the laser moves with our footage. And well, what shall I say? That looks great so far. Let me bring out this destruction layer and bring it beneath the laser. And I scrub through this, and you see this is the floor that cracks open. Let's just bring it a little bit back at the moment, and I'm just scaling and positioning this in a way that looks good, because I want to go to the very end and see that my feet are pretty close to the border here. And then I can just link it to the null object. And when the laser hits it, I want it to just start over there. So I can hit Control Shift D. So let's just crop off the beginning of this layer. And what we see now is that maybe this happens a little bit slow. And just to keep in mind, most of the footage elements that you're buying online are shot slower than they should be, so in slow motion. And this is because in that way you can adjust the speed, make it really fast, or even make a slow motion shot out of it, and you still have enough frames to play with. But we want to have this happen a bit faster. So one way to do it would be to click on the destruction layer, right click, time stretch, and now we could play with the stretch factor or with the new duration, make it quicker, like 4 seconds or something. But no, we don't do it like that. We simply hold down the Alt button, and when we move the endpoint of the layer, you see that it shortens or expands. But you see that our first frame where it is visible stays at the same position. And this is something that comes in really handy for stuff like this, maybe even a bit faster. Timing seems about right, but I want to have it still visible at the end. So again, I can right click on it, go to time and freeze on last frame. And we're almost done. So I quickly show you how I animated the laser, because I have it sit on the ground until the crack opens, went to the laser, hit P for position, set a keyframe, and when it's fully opened, I just dragged it so it looks like it goes into the hole. And to hide that the laser isn't going over the hole but into the hole, I create a mask for it. But I'm not going to mask out the laser itself, but I create a matte to use later on as an alpha matte. So let's do this together to show you how quick and easy this could be done. And I'm also going to show you what benefits you have with doing that. So let's create a new layer and call it our matte, and make sure to have it comp size and hit OK. And I can directly hide it for now, but have it still selected. And now I can go as close as I need to and create a mask around that bottom part here. Now I hit M to get the mask properties and set a keyframe, and I can go forward a few frames and simply adjust the mask to wherever I wanna have it. And you can also add that matte to the null object. In that way you don't need that many keyframes as I do at the moment. Okay, now we can turn it back on, and now you click on the layer below the matte, which is the laser, and we define what we want to use for a matte, and we want to use the alpha matte. And that way it cuts out everything that has an alpha channel, so everything that is visible. But of course we want to have it the other way around, and you can do that by going to an alpha inverted matte. Of course you have all the features that a matte normally has. You can click on F for feathering and just bring out the feather a little bit, and there we have it. So for my tutorial I also animated the laser going down, so let's do that also. Go into position, set a keyframe, go forward a few frames, and I can just drag it all the way down because I have created that matte. Maybe even a bit faster, and it looks like the laser is going into the hole. And if we turn on motion blur for the laser, you see that the end will get blurred. Okay, that's the first thing I've done to make it look more convincing. And now let's try to integrate the hole a little bit more, because I think that those black levels are just too dark in comparison to what I look. But let's check it. We can just bring down this exposure slider and we'll brighten up everything. But this is just for your viewing purpose. That doesn't change anything in the image. It's just how bright you see the image. And I'll just bring it up until all the blacks in the original footage are gone. And this is somewhere over here. You see the blackest part would maybe be beneath my arm here. And let's just bring it up. And now all the black would be gone. But you still see black in our foreground element, in our destruction. So let's bring out a levels effect, and you have black to white over here. But remember, in that point we don't want to have black anymore. So let's just bring it over a little bit until you see it slowly disappears, maybe somewhere around here. And now we can either go back to 0 or just click on that button again, and it will set it to 0. And now our hole looks way better integrated. So this is before and after. Maybe we could still tint it a little bit red, and you can go into the red and just drag it a little bit to the side Perfect. And a last quick tip that I really use a lot of times. I want to create something that looks a little bit more like grass that is overlapping over that hole. So how can we do that? Well, I take the original footage and call this grass. Maybe I just solo this. And I also duplicate the destruction and call it our grass mat. And again, I'm using that hole to cut a hole into the grass. Sounds funny, but let's try it out. Again, I'm going to the track mat and set it as an alpha mat. Now you can see what I've done. And again, I want to have the opposite. So I invert it. Now I have a hole in the grass. And now I want to create like really small grass parts over here. And you can do that with a roughen edges effect. Real quick, let's create a new composition, call it roughen. And I'm just creating a new layer. And let's say this is our grass. And we want to apply the roughen edges. And roughen edges does exactly that. It roughens the edges. When we click on that layer, it shows or hides the mask. So let's hide it for now. And you can increase the border and scale it up or down. And then we stretch it. So when we stretch it positive, it stretches horizontally. And when we go in the other direction, it stretches vertically. And also we can play with the complexity. And you see, this looks way more like a grass border than without, because we have created all those fine random streaks. Maybe let's just copy that effect, go back into our main comp and apply it to our mat. Maybe we just solo this because this is our alpha mat, and you can see that it has an alpha channel by clicking on that checkerboard icon here. And let's paste our effect in here, and boom, what we have is a really nice border for that effect. And again, let's unsolo this and hide it because it's just the mat. And you see what we have here. We have now the hole with a more of a grass structure. Let's just pre-comp this by hitting Ctrl-Shift-C or simply selecting both of the layers, going to Layer, Pre-Compose, call it Grass Extra, and hit OK. So, and the cool thing is this is animated, you see? And I obviously only want to have the front of this, so I can quickly create a mask, feather this, and now I have something extra that I of course have to bring above the destruction. And again, you can add it in wherever you want to add it to add like a little bit more detail, because now it looks like there's just something cut out really quick and dirty. And if you have a look over here, you really have a grass structure. Perfect. And again, you can animate this mask and play with it to your likings, but I think for now this looks really, really amazing. Another thing that I have done to add some extra level of detail to it, I have created a new layer, new solid, make it red, bring it above our laser, and I have applied the advanced lightning effect to it. And what you can do here, you can simply animate this, and this is exactly what I have done. I have animated the origin as well as the direction, set it to strike, and then go forward a few frames and simply animate it together with our footage, and then just crop off the end. And when we play this, there's some extra detail that doesn't look that convincing at the moment, but we can play with this, for example, with the glow settings, also make it like a reddish color, and go to the blending mode and also set this maybe to screen. And now we're getting somewhere. I also created an adjustment layer above the footage, and let's just bring out the footage because I shot this and I thought, okay, this is looking nice, but maybe I can tweak it a little bit, and went to hue and saturation, because we have some of the green grass, but we also have like this reddish brown one. So I just set the range for this red to brown color. What this is basically doing, this starts from blue and goes 360 degrees around in a circle and ends with blue again. And at the bottom there's the same circle, a blue over red over green to blue. And now I can just shift the red hue, because so everything that is in that color range from red to something like this orange brown, I can tweak it. You see, now basically everything that is brown on top gets mapped to red, and you can do that the other way around. And now everything that is brown gets a little bit more into the green direction. Really quick tip if you have something like this going on in your shot. So now we're already pretty far with this tutorial, And of course you want to see how I jump into the hole. So how do we do that? We need to create two things. At first, I need to animate myself jumping into that hole. So let's look for the frame where I am jumping highest. And this is about that frame. So I'm duplicating the footage, bring it to the top and call it jump. And create time a freeze frame. And I'm also starting at this exact position. And now I do my best on rotoing myself out here. Okay, and now also the holes between my legs. And of course I'm going to subtract the last two. So go to masks, subtract, subtract. Now I have the image of me standing still, and I'm going to reposition the anchor point. So I'm clicking on myself, hitting the Y key and just position this roughly in the middle, because then I can scale and position everything from that point. Now let's turn on the footage. So let's create a position keyframe at the first frame and let's check out how fast I normally would fall. Okay, here I would hit the floor. So let's just bring me down here to the floor and let's just go forward the same amount of frames, and as I would fall faster, just drag me down a little bit more, and now I can also get rid of the middle frame and watch it. Okay, I'm falling a little bit slow, so let's just bring in the last keyframe and make this one an easy ease frame. So I'm getting faster while falling. And also parent this to the null layer, because now I see that I have to bring me down a little bit further to be covered. Okay, perfect. Let's save this and create another mask on that layer around the hole. And unsolo this so we can mask it a little bit easier. Hit M to get the mask path. Go to the first frame and we can easily do that real quick frame by frame. And to be honest, I wouldn't even have to do it in the beginning, but just as soon as my mask hits the border of the hole. Now I can turn it back on and also make this a subtractive mask. Great, I'm jumping into that hole. So last but not least, we have to create a mat for where I am jumping. So we go to that freeze frame again, duplicate our footage, call this grass, and this time we will just mask out not me but the grass. Make this one a freeze frame and again parent it to the null. And also for this mask we only want to have it where the jump is starting, and you see it doesn't cover all of the image, but we can go to the last frame and do that simply once again. Call it grass 2, set the grass as a freeze frame and also parent it to our null. So this is what we have here. We have created an area without me, and of course there's the jump, and when we time this right on that frame everything's perfect, and in that frame it's covering. Also when we will turn on motion blur for those layers you won't notice a difference. Let's turn on everything else. Let's bring our adjustment layer with this green trick on top. Next shot, next. Let's bring out the footage for that shot. And this is a really simple one. So this is what I've done here. I actually had a chair standing here and I jumped from the chair. Really easy. And to cover for the chair, I took a still from the same camera position where I simply placed my guitar and got rid of the chair. All you have to do is mask it out, feather it a little bit, and I didn't even have to go into much detail because I knew I wanted to add all the debris later on. So let's go into the destruction, and this is what we have here. So I just start with the debris flying down at the beginning already. Maybe I just cut in here where I'm already hanging in the air. So I hit B for beginning, right click on trim comp to work area. And now it's just scaling up the elements, bringing them into a matching color. In this way, as I have the light coming from the back and they are pretty close to camera, I want to make them darker, so I get rid of all the white, just like so. And as they are pretty close to the camera, they should also be out of focus. So I add a camera lens blur to the stock element. And by default, this has already a blur radius of 5. And bring this down a little bit. And to finalize this, I would pre-compose it, add position, scale and rotation keyframes, and just pretend I was filming me coming from the top. So I'm pushing everything to the top, and then the cameraman tries to find me here in the middle, and there I am. And then he needs to reposition the frame, and until the end he frames me completely in the middle. And we can do the same for the rotation. Just when I hit the bottom, the cameraman rotates slightly because he reacts to my movement and finds his way back. Maybe something like this. Add on motion blur and watch what we have created. Really, really convincing. And for the sake of this, let's take our main comp, drag and drop it into a new composition, and let's play this back. Perfect and super awesome, perfect. And imagine all of that with really cheesy sound effects. Let me try this. So, and this is also the end of the tutorial. So I hope you really learned something, and if you like what you see, then just feel free to subscribe to my channel, because in that way I can do way more of those really fun tutorials. And now I wish you a lot of fun with stock elements in After Effects.